Good morning, children. So, this is our last chapter based on your revised syllabus, chapter 11 of your history, part 2, modernization. So, in this chapter, basically, we will talk about the Japan and China. Okay, so there are different part of modernization of Japan and China. How they or what did they did to make their country modernization. So, the themes tell us a fascinating story how different historical conditions led Japan and China on divergent paths in building independent and modern nation. Okay, so it doesn't mean that if a territory is small or big, it doesn't matter. Okay, the one whose territory is small, it doesn't mean that it will be torture. Not the territory which is big can be very powerful. So as China has big territory, whereas Japan has small. So it is a similar case with those of the Britain, as it was having a small territory, whereas India has a vast territory, right? But still, Britain had established its colonial empire in India. So, in similar way, it was with Japan, as Japan was a small island and China was a big territory. But still, Japan is one of the such country in our history whom none of the European power had, or we can say could make it a colonial country. Whereas, if we will see, most of the Asian countries and the European country were being subjected to colonial rule. Clear? Now, so we will discuss about China and Japan, the two countries in this chapter. As China is a vast country ruled by the Qing dynasty in 19th century, whereas Japan was a small island. It seemed to be locked in isolation. But still, with a few decades, China was thrown out. Okay, the imperial government lost political control and was unable to reform effectively, and the country was focused, or we can say, faced by the civil war. Okay, so Japan, on the other hand, was successful in building a modern nation state, creating an industrial economic, and even establish a colonial empire by incorporating Taiwan in 1895 and Korea in 1910. Now, the Chinese reacted slowly and faced immense difficulty. Why? As they sought to redefine their tradition to cope with the modern world and to rebuild their nation strain and become free from Western and Japanese control. So, children, the Chinese Communist Party has emerged victorious from the civil war of 1949. However, by the end of the 1970s, Chinese leader felt that the ideological system was retarding economic growth and development. So, Japan became an advanced industrial nation, but its drive for empire led to war and had defeated at the hand of Anglo-American force. You all know that in the Second World War, USA has dropped bomb in the Japan, right? The US occupation marked the beginning of a more democratic political system, and Japan rebuilt its economy to emerge by the 1970s as a major economic power. Clear? So, out here, the sources also we get from where we get the sources. What are the sources which help us to know about this? Isn't it? There must be sources. So, sources were like dynastic history, official records were there, scholar writing, popular literature, and religious literature was there, which help us to know about it. Clear? So, these are the sources. So now let's have an introduction of China and Japan. Okay, so first we will see its geographical area. So China is a vast continental country and the core is dominated by major river system. That is by major three river system. First one, the Yellow River, that was Honghe, which was been called by in the Japanese term. The Yangtze River in the Japanese term, it was called Changjing, and it was the third longest river in the world. And the last one was the Pearl River. Clear? And Whereas, if you will see of Japan, Japan is a small island country. It is surrounded by group of island. That was Honshu, Kyushu, Shikoku, Hokkaido. Clear? So these are the island which has been surrounded by to the Japan, and it does not have a major river system. 50% of the Japan area is in mountainous, and that area has been active to earthquake zone. Clear? Now, if we talk about its ethnic group, China had divergent ethnic group like the group that include was Han, Uyghur, Hui, Manchu, Tibetan, clear, but the majority group was the Han. And in Japan, they had homogeneous ethnic group. And the language in China, they used to speak language like Cantonese and the Chinese. In Japan, they speak Japanese language. That is the Japan people, they speak the Japanese language. Now about the food, if you will see, China food, if you talk, it's different from those of Japan. In China, they have wheat, pastries, dumpling, dumsum, rice, dumsum, which is you all know the which we call momo, right? So in Japan, they have rice, fish, or raw fish they are eating. Clear? So this is about the introduction, or we can say geographical area, ethnic group, language, and about the food habit of the Japan and China. Now, let's begin our chapter with the first talking about Japan, the political system we will see about Japan. Okay, so by the 12th century, Japan power was shifted from emperor to shoguns at Edo. At modern time, it is known as Tokyo. Okay, so in Japan, the political system was run by Tokugawa family from 1603 to 1867. So they had divided country into 250 dominions. Now each dominance was under the daimyo or the lords. Understood? Must clear it. Okay. So they were being asked to stay at the capital in order to avoid the rebellion, and the Samoria were the ruling elite. Samoria, and they served the Shohogu and the Domiyas. So 16th century, what we see had brought important change in development. The first change what we see was it made the peasant disarmed. They could not further carry along with them sword or any kind of weapon. That is, it has prohibited the peasant for carrying sword or any kind of weapons. Okay, except Samoria, they could carry sword. So its motive was to ensure peace and order in his area. Second was autonomy was given to daimyo. So they were ordered to live in its area, that is, in its capital of their domain. Now third was the land survey was done to ensure productivity and collection of revenue. With its identified the owners, with the help of this, it has identified its owner of the land and the taxpayer. So by the mid 17th century, what we see is that in Japan, we could see larger cities like Edo, that is Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, which had led to the growth of a commercial economic and a vibrant culture. So children, it had led to the increase of many money. So children, it had led to the increase of money and creation of stock market, and which led the growth in the economics in the new way. So their period, so this period had witnessed development or change in the sphere of social and culture group. Clear? So as people, what we can see, started enjoying reading the book, it became possible for gifted writer to earn a living solely by writing. So in Edo, that is Tokyo, people could rent a book for the price of a bowl of noodles. So this showed that how popular reading had become and gives a glimpse into the scale of printing. Now next we'll move to the Meiji restorations. Okay. So the Tokugawa family, they ruled or hold its power till 1867 and there broke a revolution in 1868. And Tokugawa had to give up its hold and Japan new rule of power was being established and we call it as a Meiji. Okay, that is, Meiji came to power in 1868. It held its power until 1912. It was in power. So he brought the emperor in Edo, that is in Tokyo. Now, Meiji used to be said that during its rule, it was having God gifted things until Tokugawa, how it was brought, how they used to use the things. But during the time of Meiji, he did more with that thing and he did development a lot. Clear? That is, he brought a development out there. So as before the coming of the Meiji, Japan was not adopting the Western policy ideas. So after it came to power, there came a drastic change. As in 1853, the US, they sent a commander named Matthew Perry to Japan. Why they sent? For what purpose it was been sent? He was been sent to Japan to do trade with Japan and to establish diplomatic relation with Japan, as it was a good opportunity for Japan also, as because US was having new technology and having trade relation, good trade relations, right? So with USA, if Japan will have the good trade relation, its value will increase a lot. So the arrival of Perry, it brought significant change in Japan politics. Now we have North America, which had the major trade market with China. That is, North America was having major trade with China. But on the midway between North America and China, if North America has to go to China, it has to go through ocean. Which ocean? The biggest one, that is the Pacific Ocean. Clear? With this whaling ship. So as it has to pass to through the Pacific Ocean, but it has to cross or it has to pass to Japan, then only it could reach to China. And then it could then he thought that if they are doing trade with China, then as they're passing to Japan, why not they could do trade with Japan, as Japan also lies in the middle, right? So it will work as a mediator. Why Japan will work as a mediator between North America and China. So the value of Meiji rise and Meiji restoration was done. Clear? But Japan was afraid. Why Japan was afraid? As because in India, British came in 1857. That is, after 1857 revolt which broke out and established its colonial rule in 1858 in India. Isn't it? So Japan afraid about the European, as they will establish its colonial rule in the same way as it happened in India and other countries. So they were having scared. So but most of the scholar, they wanted to build up a relation with European, as most of the Japanese scholar, they want to build a relation with the European, as they said it will, as they used to think that it will help them to learn new idea, to gain new knowledge and to know about new technology from them. But there were other scholars also who said that the European should be kept outside the Japan. Understood? So the Japan government has launched a policy with the slogan. What was the slogan? Fukoku Kyohi. Clear? Which means rich country, strong army. Okay. And they realize that they need to develop the economic and need to build a very strong army. Otherwise, they will face problem or they can be subjected to the colony rule, just like India. Now, to do this, they need to create a sense of nationhood among the people and to transfer subject into the citizen. That is, within its citizen, it need to build a nationhood, brotherhood among the people. That is, this feeling should be developed. Okay, so at the same time, new government was built, which was called emperor system, having a bureaucracy and the military power under it. Okay, and emperor was treated as a descendant of the sun god, and they were considered as a leader of westernization. And emperor birthday was observed as a national holiday. Understood? Now Meiji restoration has focused on some reform he did, we can say, like education reform, administrative reform, constitutional reform, and economic reform. So, first, we will talk about the educational reform, what he did in the field of education. What he did, a new school system was being built up in 18, that is from 1870s. So schooling was made compulsory for boys and girls, and tuition fee was minimal, that means it was very less, fees was very less, but the curriculum was being based on the western model. Okay, but emphasizing on modern idea, it laid also stress on the place on loyalty, and the study of Japanese history was made compulsory. And the Minister of Education, they exercised control over the curriculum and in the selection of the textbook. That is the Ministry of Education, what they did, they have a look over the curriculum, and also in selecting the textbook they have been decided, as well as in teacher training also they focus. So what was called moral culture, that was being taught to the children, and the textbooks, through textbook it has urged the children to give respect to their parents, to be loyal to the nation, and to become a good citizen. This was being taught to the children. Now next, that is the second, was the administrative reform. So for that, but we can see the main intent of Meiji administration was to collect revenue. Why? It was been become the main intent to maintain the local school, health facility, and as well as for the recruitment center of the military. So for that, revenue was required. So for that, Meiji government has imposed a new administrative structure by altering the old village, that is old system, and dominant boundaries. And even all the young men over 25 had to do a period of military service. Clear? So, third, we have the constitutional reform. Now, the government has set up a legal system to regulate the formation of political group, which has control meeting and impose strict censorship, as the government has imposed strict censorship. That means all this measure has created problem. Opposition was rose against the government, right? So military and bureaucracy were put under the direct control of the emperor, but this system was not correct, isn't it? That military system and bureaucracy should be work under the control, direct control of the emperor, isn't it? So for that reason, people has opposed to the emperor. Okay, now we have the economic reform. So what was the Meiji economic reform? Let's see. Modernizations of economic was an important aspect of Meiji reform. Funds were being raised by levying taxes on agriculture, that is, or we can say agriculture taxes was being increased. First railway line was constructed between Tokyo and Yokohama in 1872-72. Clear? Now textile industry was being set up, and for that machinery was being imported from Europe. Even foreign technician was being called to train the workers, as well as teacher was also being called to teach in the university and in school. Japanese students were being sent abroad to get knowledge, to gain technical knowledge, new idea. Clear? Now many companies like Mitsubishi and Sumitomo was being set up, which helped through subsidize and tax benefit to become more shipbuilder, so that Japan carried in Japanese ship only. Clear? So we can see that there was a development also. Like what type of development? We see the population was increased. 35 million was here in 1872. It has increased to 55 million in 1920. Now, to reduce population, what the Japan government they have done, to reduce the population pressure, the government actively encouraged the migration system. First to the northern India of Hokkaido, which had been a largely autonomous area, where the indigenous people called the Enun lived, and then to Hawaii and Brazil, okay, as well as to the growing colonial empire of Japan. Clear? So within Japan, there was a shift to towns as industry developed. By 1925, 21% of the population lived in cities. By 1935, this figure has gone to 32%. Understood? So children, in our today class, we will study till modernizing the economy. So must go through it. So in our next class, we will move on with the industrial worker. Clear? Thank you.